What is up, everybody? This is your boy, Teran Rodriguez, bringing you another edition of Set Point. And it's the last recap of the 2020-2021 volleyball season. We have a lot to talk about, such as Hawaii men's volleyball. They finally did it. They finally won an NCAA men's volleyball championship as they just swept past BYU. How did they do it? And what just went wrong with BYU? How does this keep happening to the Cougars? And USC beach volleyball. The Lady Trojans finally got it done. They are back on top of the NCAA beach volleyball mountain as they won their third NCAA beach volleyball championship. Technically it's their fourth, but two of them are actually sanctioned, and then they have the third one. So, how did the women of Troy do it, and who did they beat? Also, we have a recap of both the NCAA beach volleyball and NCAA men's volleyball tournament. Who were the top stars, and which teams unfortunately disappointed? Also, what does this mean going forward for Set Point? What will I be talking about in the near future? You'll have to find out later on the show. You are listening to Set Point here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. And welcome all to another edition of Set Point. Thank you all very much for tuning in to episode 89 of Set Point. I can't believe it has been 89 episodes. I can say that for all my episodes of Set Point just because I've done Set Point for pretty much over a year now. We're pretty much at the 1.5 year mark of Set Point. But that's not the point. The point is that we got some volleyball to talk. This is the last recap of the NCAA volleyball season, meaning no more beach volleyball and men's volleyball till next spring, and no more NCAA women's volleyball until the fall. Unless, of course, we get another pandemic, which if that happens, then I'm probably going to cry. But that's not the point. So, also, I forgot to mention that this week is IE Sports Radio's 7-year anniversary. But I'm going to get into that a little bit later. So, without any further delay, let's get on into the volleyball action. But first, we got to get our sponsors out of the way. So, the first sponsor is Legacy Financial. 2020 was a tough year. However, staying positive, keeping your faith, and continuing to work hard is the goal. If you're ever in a financial struggle at the moment, you're doing well and you want to get to the next level, or you're looking for a new opportunity to work for yourself and earn more money part-time, give Iowa a call at 510-928-2104 to book your appointment today. Iowa and her husband Andrew are just two people on a mission to help families build a legacy. You can follow Legacy Financial on Twitter at Legacy_Uncut, and you can follow them on Instagram at Sims_Uncut. The next sponsor for IE Sports Radio is the Southern California Warriors Semi-Pro Football Team. The world of semi-pro sports is unlike any other sports organizations. Players pay to play in hopes of so many different outcomes, whether it's playing to get film to try out for professional teams, big-time colleges, or just playing to stay in shape. No matter what, all semi-pro players have one thing in common, and that's playing for the love of the game. The SoCal Warriors have been on a quest to earn titles and give players second chances since 2017. Whether you're in Southern California or anywhere in the world, give semi-pro sports a chance if you love your sport. You may get that second chance you have been waiting for as an athlete. You can follow SoCal Warriors on Twitter at SoCal Warriors, on Instagram at Southern California_Warriors, and you can follow them on Facebook by typing in the word Southern, and then the word California, and then the word Warriors, and then poof, you'll be following or liking them on Facebook. And also, you could like and follow Legacy Financial on Facebook as well by just typing in the word legacy and then the word financial, and then poof, you're following them on Instagram, on Facebook as well. You just gotta go to the search bar and do what I said. So there's that. But thank you to our two sponsors, Legacy Financial and Southern California Warriors, for being the official sponsors of IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all those sports. Now, without any further delay, let's get on into the NCAA volleyball action. So I just spoiled who the champion was when it came to the NCAA men's volleyball championship, which unfortunately is a bummer. But let's go through the entire NCAA volleyball bracket. Because last I left off, with the first round that had just concluded. It was Penn State losing to Belmont Abbey, which that's no surprise. No offense to Belmont Abbey. I'm not trying to take anything away from them, or I'm not trying to be a jerk, but we knew it was going to be a sweep against Penn State. So now we move on to the second round. So the second round was very exciting the quarterfinals. The quarterfinals were very exciting as the first quarterfinal included UC Santa Barbara and Pepperdine, both of which were from Southern California. So UC Santa Barbara won the Big West Conference Championship, while Pepperdine finished as the runner-up in the Mountain Pacific Sports Federation Conference Tournament champion. So the first two sets were very tight, but UC Santa Barbara took both of those sets, and I give credit to Pepperdine. They really made UC Santa Barbara earn those sets. In the third set, Pepperdine was able to break through, and they finally won that elusive set that they were hoping to get as they won the third set. I believe it was 25-22. I didn't see the scores, and I don't have them right in front of me, so that's unfortunate. But all I could tell you is that both teams were very intense, and I thought that match could have gone either way. All three of those first sets could have gone either way. As I'm looking I finally found the match that I was looking for Penn State not Penn State, UC Santa Barbara and Pepperdine. So the first set was 25-23, and the second set was 25-22, and then the third set was 25-22 in favor of Pepperdine. So UC Santa Barbara led the match 2-1, and then the fourth set was very tight, as in it was very back and forth. It looked as if UC Santa Barbara was going to run away with it, but then Pepperdine came back with some well-timed service aces, and they really started to show their prowess, and they showed why they deserve to be in the NCAA men's volleyball tournament. And they also were the runner-up in the very tough MPSF tournament. Unfortunately for the Waves, UC Santa Barbara was able to close out the match with 2 straight points, winning set number 4, 28-26. That was the tightest set of the 4 sets that were played, and UC Santa Barbara advances to the NCAA men's volleyball championship. Or, I'm sorry, not the championship, the semifinals. So, again, I wasn't too surprised that Pepperdine gave him a battle, but I wasn't too surprised that UC Santa Barbara won. So, I say hello to Ben Sutterworth III in the chat room. Thank you for joining me. I appreciate you tuning in. Just recapping the NCAA men's volleyball tournament. So that was the first quarterfinal. The second quarterfinal featured Penn State and Lewis. And this one, it wasn't one-sided, but Penn State had its chances of taking a set off of Lewis, but unfortunately, Lewis is just so talented, they were unable to relinquish the lead, as Lewis defeated Pepperdine in straight sets. I know the first 2 sets were decided by 2 points. The third set was kind of one-sided, just because Penn State had no momentum left, and they just couldn't get anything going, and Lewis was just on a roll. So Lewis defeated Penn State 3-0, as they advance to the semifinals of the NCAA Men's Volleyball Championship. So now the semifinals were set. Hawaii takes on UC Santa Barbara, while BYU takes on Lewis. And basically, there were no upsets when it came to this tournament, considering Lewis was theoretically the 3 seed, while Penn State was the 6 seed, and Pepperdine was the 5 seed, and UC Santa Barbara was the 4 seed. So, as for Hawaii UC Santa Barbara, it wasn't necessarily one-sided, but it was just like the previous matches that UC Santa Barbara and Hawaii had. It was a sweep, and it was no true surprise, as Hawaii swept UC Santa Barbara. I give credit to the Gauchos for making it that far, but they faced a veteran team such as Hawaii, and they have such real good talent. They only have 3 seniors, which is quite shocking because I thought Hawaii was a lot more deep, but those 3 seniors really made an impact. Colton Cowell made a great impact. I believe he was the libero or outside hitter. Let me just double check. No, he was the outside hitter. Colton Cowell was the outside hitter. Rado Parupanov. I'm probably butchering his name for like the umpteenth time because every time I think it's one name, it's actually pronounced another name. I thought it was pronounced Parapanov, then it's pronounced Parupanov, or now it's pronounced Parupanov. And now I'm just going to call him Rado. So Rado was great on the right side, and then Patrick Gassman was outstanding at the middle blocker position. That's basically your front line right there. Like, that's how good Hawaii was this year, and that's how deep they were when it came to their offense. And it's quite outstanding because considering they lack seniors. They only have 3, but they're able to get like major contributions from other players such as Gage Worsley, who played really well at the libero position. And libero is kind of the most important position. And then also they got great contributions from Jacob Tella. Or, I'm sorry, no. Jakub Tella. It's not... He is from... I believe he's from like Yugoslavia or Russia. So it's pronounced Jakub Tella, not Jacob Thiel. Jakub Tella. I'm not mispronouncing that. So Jakub Tella did really great at the setter position. Tella is only a sophomore, and he's really learning well. And I think that's what makes Hawaii deadly, because they have underclassmen that are stepping up. UC Santa Barbara had a lot of senior leadership, but unfortunately, it just wasn't enough. Like, they just couldn't get the job done against the very hungry Hawaii team, as they had little to no answers for Rado and Gassman. So there was that semifinal right there. Hawaii advanced to the NCAA Men's Volleyball Championship for the second straight season, as remember last year there was no NCAA Men's Volleyball season due to COVID, but the previous year Hawaii advanced to the NCAA Men's Volleyball Championship, where they lost to Long Beach State at the Pyramid. So there was that. So as for the other semifinal, that semifinal featured number 2 seed BYU against number 3 seed Lewis. And the first 2 sets, BYU rolled past Lewis. It wasn't too close, but then the third set came, and Lewis, with their backs against the wall, was able to take that set 28-26, which is quite surprising. I didn't think they were actually going to win a set off them, just because Lewis has struggled against stiff competition this season, and some of my friends were telling me, oh, Lewis has a chance. I'm like, no, Lewis kind of struggles against upper tier competition. I understand BYU also struggles against the lower tier, but their definition of lower tier is actually top 10 teams, because UCLA was top 10 most of the year, and then Grand Canyon was like top 10 borderline every now and then. Like, they only lost to that one GCU match just because they lost that first set 44-42, and then ever since that lost set, BYU had no momentum. So we could give BYU a pass for that one loss against GCU. And GCU was very underrated this year. Like, I think GCU was like the most underappreciated team of the MPSF. I mean, you compare Lewis's losses to their two losses came against Ohio State, which Ohio State I don't even think made it out of the first round of their conference tournament. So honestly, I'm not trying to pick on Lewis, but I just don't see anything special about Lewis. I don't think they're a deep enough team compared to BYU and Hawaii. I think maybe other teams could beat Lewis. Like, it all depends. Like, it all depends the location and if a team has certain reps underneath their belt. Like, I think, honestly, teams like Long Beach State or Pepperdine or UCLA would beat Lewis. I'm not trying to say Lewis is terrible, but I'm just saying that Lewis is not that deep of a team. They have good talent such as Ryan Conan, but the buck kind of stops there. Like, their other seniors or their other talented players are like complimentary, but again, it's not like super talented like the players that BYU has or Hawaii has or UC Santa Barbara has and whatnot. So, anyway, the fourth set between BYU and Lewis occurred, and BYU won that set. They said, we're not going to go 5. We're winning this fourth set. Well, we are staying in Columbus, Ohio, while y'all are going home. So, BYU advanced to the NCAA Men's Volleyball Championship, and the championship consisted of number 1 seed Hawaii and number 2 seed BYU, which, well, if it wasn't going to be these two, I'd be very surprised. So, I didn't see the whole NCAA Men's Volleyball Championship because I was at a retirement banquet for a volleyball coach who is retiring from teaching. Well, two volleyball coaches that are retiring from teaching. They're not retiring from coaching, but they just are retiring from teaching because they're getting up there in age, and honestly, they want more time to themselves and for coaching and whatnot. So there's that. So anyway, the BYU-Hawaii NCAA Men's Volleyball Final had Hawaii taking the first set 25-21. That was, spoiler alert, that was the closest set between the two teams, as that featured 7 ties and 3 lead changes. But unfortunately for BYU, Hawaii was able to grind it out. Hawaii really served the ball well, as I'll be going over that stat in a little bit. So the second set, BYU did everything it could to stay within striking distance of Hawaii, but the Rainbow Warriors took the second set 25-19, and they took a 2-0 lead in the match over BYU, and the Hawaii fans were just feeling it. They knew that this championship was coming. And then the third set, BYU once again did everything it could to stay within striking distance, but they never ever led, and there were no ties, as Hawaii was just dealing service aces on the service line, and BYU had little to no answer for Rado and Patrick Gaspin and Colton Cowell. Also, some other underclassmen stepped up, such as Chaz Galloway, who's only a freshman, and I'm probably going to butcher this guy's name, Jeremy Voss, who stepped up in the middle blocker position. And then Jacob Tella also stepped up really well, not just when it came to passing the ball, or setting the ball, but when it came to serving and passing and getting kills as well. So, in the end, Hawaii took the third set 25-16 and swept BYU, winning their first national championship. Now, I know Hawaii won an NCAA men's volleyball championship back in 2002, I want to say, but that eventually got vacated because I have no reason. I don't know why, and I'm not going to say it over the air, but But it got vacated, and unfortunately for Hawaii, that unfortunately happened because things happen. But Hawaii, yeah, it was in 2002 where their last championship got vacated. Funny enough, the year after, Lewis was the NCAA champion, and they had their title vacated as well. So it sucks, but this time, yeah, it was because of NCAA violations. But I don't know the exact violations, but the point is that Hawaii is now the new NCAA men's volleyball champion, and they deserve it. Like, they were so amazing this year. Like, even when they lost that match to UC San Diego in the semifinals of the Big West Conference tournament, they were able to get back on track, and they were able to sweep both opponents, being UC Santa Barbara and BYU. Like, I thought BYU was going to come out with a little bit more fire, but I forgot. But little did I know, BYU suddenly turns into a pumpkin when it comes to the NCAA men's volleyball championship. Like, it happened back in 2018, and it happened now. So BYU is just going to have to work a little bit harder if they ever want to become NCAA men's volleyball champions for the first time since 2004. But this is the first unsanctioned NCAA men's volleyball championship for Hawaii. So let's give them a round of applause. So recapping the stats for both teams, let's start with the individual stats. Rado led Hawaii with 13 kills. He only had 3 hitting errors. He had a lot more hitting errors in the semifinals against Santa Barbara than he did against BYU. He hit .357 on the night, as that was his last ever collegiate volleyball game, as I imagine Rado's going to go pro, and he's going to be really good. Wherever he goes, he is going to do great wonders for any volleyball team he decides to sign with. Colton Cowell and Patrick Gassman each had 7 kills. Gassman only had 1 hitting error. He hit .545. If you've seen Patrick Gassman, that dude is loaded. As we also say hello to Courtney Harden, who pops up in the chat room. Thank you for joining me, Courtney, as he had himself a great show on Saturday with his show, The Real Deal. And he gave me a plug for his show, so I might as well just return the favor. Check out Courtney Harden on Instagram Live. He has lots of amazing interviews with lots of personalities in the world of journalism and in terms of reporting and whatnot. He's brought forth a lot of guests. I've even been a guest, and his show, The Real Deal, is on Spreaker every Saturday. I believe it's like, when it comes to my time, it's like early in the morning. It's like 8 a.m. or something along those lines. It all depends on what Courtney says. And yeah, but definitely do check out The Real Deal, and definitely follow Courtney on Instagram, because he has a lot of Instagram Live interviews and whatnot. And he has great interviews on via Zoom, so definitely do check out Courtney Harden. And also check out BS3 Radio as a whole, as well as my boy Ben Sudworth III. Like, he has a plethora of shows. He's got a little Monday evening. I don't think it's called a podcast. It's called The Forecast. And it's basically like talks about like social issues and sports and whatnot. I gotta start getting back into that just because I've been busy and whatnot. So that's kind of the plug for Ben Sudworth III and all of BS3 Radio. And BS3 Radio has a lot of great shows. They have Eagles versus Everybody, Cats Talk Wednesday, which I was just recently a guest on a couple weeks ago. They have the Padula Show. So there's your plug for BS3 Radio. Okay. And BS3 Radio is kind of the sister station of IE Sports Radio. So we all got to support one another. So, okay, that's the plug right there. Back to the volleyball. So, Hawaii also got 6 kills apiece from Chaz Galloway and Gerhumi Voss. Both of those players didn't even have one hitting error, and both those players had 9 attempts. So, there's that. In terms of assists, Jakob Tella had 36 assists, which is no surprise. He's done really well as the setter, as he's only a sophomore, like I just mentioned, and I think Jakob Tella is going to do great wonders for Hawaii going forward. And who knows, maybe Charlie Wade will be able to run a 6-2, because he's got another setter on their team, which is pretty good. He goes by the name of Brett Sheward. He got to see some action this year. I think he got to play libero for a little bit, and then I guess he decided to go with Gage Worsley. I think Gage Worsley got hurt, and then Sheward had to step up. So there's that. Now this is the category that Hawaii dominated in: service aces. Hawaii had a whopping 10 service aces, 4 of which went to Tella, 3 of which went to Rado, and then 3 of which went to Colton Cowell. That is what BYU struggled with. And even when there weren't any aces, like BYU just could not get their offense going just because they were struggling on serve receive. Like, you cannot struggle on serve receive when it comes to facing Hawaii. Like, they're going to rip jump serves at you and it's going to be fire. So I don't know what BYU was doing, but they definitely need to do really well when it comes to serve receive. Like, if they ever want to be national champions, serving and passing is the key to every match. I think they know that, but they just could not handle the hot serves from those 3 I mentioned. So in terms of blocks, Hawaii had 11 block assists, no solo stuffs, for a grand total of 5.5 blocks as a team. In terms of digs, they had 26 digs, 7 of which went to Rado, and 7 of which went to Gage Worsley, 5 of which also were dug up by Chaz Galloway. And as a team, Hawaii hit 381. They hit 400 in both sets 1 and 3. Set 2, they hit 333, which isn't bad. Like, this is the norm for Hawaii. If they're ever hitting under 300, then there's something going on. Like, I don't know what's it going to be like for them next year, but I think they're going to be just as good. So this is the last time I'll be saying it. Hawaii hit over 300. So there's that for Hawaii. Now for BYU. BYU was led by Gabby Garcia Fernandez, who had 12 kills. He had 4 hitting errors, and he had a hitting percentage of .286. David Gardini and Zach Eschenberg each had 7 kills, both of which had 4 hitting errors. In terms of assists, Will Stanley had 29 assists as well as chipping in 2 kills. BYU only had 2 service aces. They were not serving as aggressive as Will Stanley and Talon Jonathan Tafuga each had 1 service ace. BYU and Hawaii both missed 11 serves, but Hawaii clearly had the better serving ratio. So, again, when BYU's not making their serves or they're not putting pressure on the service line against Hawaii, that's what's going to happen. They're going to get blown out of the water for the most part. Well, not blown out of the water, but it's going to be one-sided. In terms of blocks, BYU had 15 block assists, 0 solo blocks, for a grand total of 7.5 blocks. And in terms of digs, BYU had 24 digs, 6 of which went to Gardini, 5 of which went to Mitchell Worthington and Eschenberg, and 4 of which went to Garcia Fernandez and Stanley. And as a team, BYU hit 263 against the normal team that would be considered okay, but against Hawaii, that's kind of not where you want to be. But again, Hawaii was just putting pressure on them throughout most of the match. And honestly, there's nothing you can't really knock Hawaii, just because Hawaii has been really consistent all year long. And And personally, I just think that BYU just lost to the superior team. And it really sucks for BYU just because they have a talented team. Their only problem is that their team just had no answers for the monsters that were Rado and Patrick Gassman. And also Hawaii was kind of in a championship drought as well. Like, Hawaii was looking to get its first championship since 2002. Unfortunately, that, like I said, that was the year that their championship was kind of stripped of them because of sanctions and violations, but it is what it is. BYU was also in the same boat, except they were looking for their first championship since 2004. So there's that right there. Unfortunately, there could only be one champion, and that champion was Hawaii. So looking at Hawaii's team as a whole, they returned quite a bit of players. I think this Hawaii team is going to be really good next year. Like, they're going to have, if all goes well, then that team is going to be stacked again, and they're going to be putting pressure on everybody. But a lot can happen from now until the beginning of the NCAA men's volleyball season. Hopefully, we get back to a new norm where everyone's going to be playing like everyone. It's not just going to be teams facing each other in their conference and then facing one another in non-conference games like the Big West did. I think that now that everything is starting to get back to some normalcy, we're going to see teams getting the green light to go out of state and face another team. Like for example, the West Coast teams couldn't face the East Coast teams. Like, the only time teams had to travel were the California teams had to travel to go to Hawaii to face Hawaii. And luckily, there weren't any travel issues and nobody got COVID. And that's the thing about the Big West Conference. They didn't have to deal with too many COVID issues. The only COVID issues that did happen were from the EIVA tournament, where one team, I think, was unable to play because of COVID and they had to drop out of the tournament, which really sucks. But again, COVID sucks, and they couldn't do anything about it. So, what I will say this is this is actually the first time I've gotten to cover this is the first time Set Point has got to cover a full NCAA men's volleyball season, because if you remember last year, the NCAA men's volleyball season was canceled, and Set Point didn't start till September 19th, 2019, where I was just talking about NCAA women's volleyball, and then, again, what happened is that the 2020 season got canceled and whatnot. So, the fact that I got to cover the full season, despite having to compete with NCAA women's volleyball, was very amazing. I really liked it, and honestly, I think it was a fun time. I really liked it, and again, I wish I could have fully covered the men's volleyball season, but again, when NCAA men's volleyball is intertwining with the women's volleyball, it's pretty much a recipe for disaster. And then you throw in beach volleyball season, that's another recipe for disaster. So it's really tough having to cover 3 different sports and just cramming it into an hour and a half, because I don't really like going past 2 hours unless I have a guest and we talk for quite a bit and whatnot. So yeah. But the thing is that I am excited for next year's NCAA volleyball season. I think next year's NCAA volleyball season could be wide open for anybody. I think it's wide open for teams like Hawaii, BYU, heck, even Long Beach State with their foundation is starting to look good. They're not at their dominant stage like they were back in 2016 all the way to 2019, but I think they're going to be up there next year, and I think they're going to challenge teams like Hawaii and BYU or UC Santa Barbara. Speaking of which, now it's time to go through my Teran Awards, or my Terry Awards, for the NCAA men's volleyball tournament. So, I don't have too many of these just because there weren't too... The tournament was kind of straightforward. And I kind of had a tough time picking which team should be on top. Which team should get which award. So, my first Terry Award for the NCAA men's volleyball season is the most outstanding team. And that obviously goes to Hawaii because they wound up winning it all. And there's no debating this, just because Hawaii has been outstanding all year. They did have that one blip against UC San Diego, but they were able to regroup from that loss, and I think that loss was the turning point. I'm not going to say this in a mean way, but I think if Hawaii ran through the entire Big West Conference tournament and they were undefeated against BYU, I think there would have been lots of pressure for them. I don't know if they could have gone undefeated and won the championship, but it's always tough to win an NCAA NCAA championship in general, or any championship in general. It's tough to go undefeated and win a championship in any sport at any level in any year. So again, we'll never know if Hawaii would have been undefeated or if they won the NCAA championship, but I think that loss was the best thing for them, because sometimes there's such thing as a good loss, because you learn a lot more from a loss than you do from a win. Like, you look at teams like Gonzaga in men's basketball. That team was undefeated going into their championship match against Baylor, and then they wound up getting demolished. And then you look at Wisconsin women's volleyball from this year. They were undefeated, even though most of their games got canceled. They were undefeated, and they were the number 1 seed of the tournament, and then they just ran into a buzzsaw being Texas in the semifinals. So, just goes to show you that there is such thing as a good loss. And Kentucky can attest to that as well, as they only had one loss on the season when it came to women's volleyball. They lost to Florida in 5 sets, and they wound up running the table the rest of the way. So, time will tell, though. But actually, no, time will not tell if Hawaii would have gone undefeated. That's going to be a question that nobody will ever be able to answer. But back to the Terry Awards. So, outstanding team goes to Hawaii. The most disappointing team, I don't really have a recipient for that award, just because everyone was kind of on par. I would say BYU, but I think it's a toss-up between BYU and Penn State. Now, Penn State faced a very good Lewis team, but I thought they would at least take a set off them. But my little case for Penn State getting the most disappointing team is because I thought Penn State was at least going to take a set off of Lewis. Because, again, Penn State didn't get this far just by rolling over. Like, Penn State got this far by facing some stiff competition, such as NJIT and George Mason, though they're not the greatest competition. NJIT was more stiff competition than, if anything. So I thought Penn State was going to at least take a set off of Lewis, but unfortunately that wasn't meant to be. And then my second part of my most disappointing team was BYU. Now, BYU obviously made it to the NCAA championship, but first and foremost, I thought they were going to handle Lewis with a little bit more ease. I know they won in 4, but they wound up losing a set to Lewis, which I thought was uncharacteristic by them. I think that kind of showed their true colors. And then also in the championship match, BYU just looked so disappointing. They really struggled in serve receive. Like, you can't do that at that point of the season. Like, you got to come ready to go. And the fact that they got swept against Hawaii, nothing against Hawaii. Hawaii was just such a great team. They were clearly the better team. But I thought that BYU would come out a little bit more fired up. And this seems to happen every time BYU makes a championship game. Like BYU manages to turn into a pumpkin, or they revert to their Groundhog Day form. It happened in 2017 when they lost to Ohio State in the NCAA championship, and then it happened now. So it's disappointing that BYU had that type of a performance in the NCAA championship game. And I don't even know if BYU will ever get back to that stage of the season. Like, I don't know if they'll ever have a season like this again. Like, last year, they had a fantastic season. They only lost once, and that was to Hawaii. But I don't know if BYU will ever have that amazing season that they had ever again. Like, I think this was one of their once-in-a-lifetime teams, and then they wound up disappointing in the end. So that's why I think BYU is more so my most disappointing team of the tournament. It has a little asterisk by it, though, considering BYU had a fantastic season. Let's get that out of the way. BYU had a fantastic season, despite injuries and COVID and whatnot. This team, they looked impressive this year. The problem was they just couldn't come up when it truly mattered most. So that's kind of my knock on them. So they get the most disappointing team award of the tournament, and then I guess Penn State would be a little bit of a runner-up. So now let's go to my surprise team of the tournament. Now, there were no surprises, so I could just say there were no surprise teams, but I thought Pepperdine really surprised me in the good way. They played UC Santa Barbara to the best of their ability. They just lost a lot of close sets. Like, the fourth set was probably the biggest heartbreaker because it went past 25 points, it was a deuce game, and then they lost 28-26, which ended the match. If they take that set, I think that fifth set can go their way. The problem was that Santa Barbara was just super stacked this year, with players like Randy DeWeese and just to name a few of their players. But I think to me, Pepperdine surprised me for the better. Like, I knew Pepperdine was going to lose, but I knew they were going to give UC Santa Barbara a challenge. And honestly, I was quite impressed with them. I think they have a good foundation. Their setter was only a freshman in Bryce Dvorak, who won the Newcomer of the Year. And I think Pepperdine has something going on next year. Like, it all depends on what happens with BYU, but I think Pepperdine could challenge BYU for the MPSF crown. But it all depends. We'll see, though. But Pepperdine does win my surprise team of the year when it comes to the NCAA tournament. Now, the team that most likely will win next year. This is kind of like a senior superlative, but I think the team that most likely wins next year, and this doesn't have to be in the NCAA tournament, but the team that most likely wins next year, if I had to go out on a limb, I'd say Hawaii. As much as I don't want to say Hawaii, I think with the amount of talent they return, with the amount of talent they return at each position, I think that BYU or the Hawaii team is probably going to look really good next year. BYU kind of looks the same. I haven't looked at their roster and compared their seniors and how many seniors they lose at which position and whatnot, but I think it's mainly Hawaii 1, BYU 2, and then it goes downhill from there. Like, I don't know who would be 3 or 4. Like, I'd have to, like, this is what I'll probably do when it comes to the offseason of Set Point. I'll probably just compare everyone's seniors, gather everyone's seniors, and then basically just do mathematics on, and then probability, and then estimation, and then like have like my personal top 10, my super duper early top 10 teams. But I can tell you that number 1 and number 2 will probably be BYU. Will be Hawaii and BYU, and then 3 through 10 will be elsewhere. So, but if I had to pick a team that's most likely going to win it all, I'd probably say Hawaii. BYU is an honorable mention if they return everybody, And then I guess other honorable mentions would probably be maybe Pepperdine, maybe Long Beach State. It all depends. So there's that. But I think that is it for the NCAA men's volleyball side of things. That's going to do it for the entire NCAA men's volleyball side of things, considering that there's not going to be any more NCAA men's volleyball for another, I want to say until like January or maybe late December of this year. Like, it all depends. Like, and we also have to factor in that the Ivy League never got to partake as well. There was no Harvard, there's no Princeton that partook this year, so we're going to get those teams back as well. So it's going to be a great thing to see. So I think next year is going to be a really fun season. I think it could be wide open depending on which team returns which players. So we'll see how it goes. But to close the book on the NCAA men's volleyball season, I really was impressed with how there weren't too many COVID cases. I liked how every team kept their players in check. They made sure that COVID did not become an issue. I liked how there was an NCAA bubble. I liked how, though I think there would have been an NCAA bubble regardless. Either way, there was a neutral site. I liked how everything was figured out correctly. And more importantly, I'm glad that we got to have a championship. And also I'm glad they got to bring back some of their players. They got to give the option to the players that could take that extra year of eligibility. So I think it was just a successful season, and I really was happy that everything went smoothly. I don't think there were hardly any cancellations or postponements. So there's that, and I think that if that's a good sign for next year, considering next year, if everything starts to go down and eventually go away, if everyone gets vaccinated, and everything else starts to go their way, I think next year we'll be seeing full capacity crowds or near full capacity crowds, and teams won't have to get checked if they have COVID or whatnot. So there's that. But this is kind of going to be the new norm for the time being until the season starts in January or something. Regardless, I'm looking forward to next year, and it's looking really promising that we're going to be back to the new norm, which is kind of like the old norm, but not really. So that's going to do it for NCAA men's volleyball. And once again, I got to give congratulations to Hawaii. Even though I'm a Long Beach State student, I got to show my appreciation for the Rainbow Warriors. They really performed well. I will say this, though. Please keep your fans, in check. I know they were complaining about how the sound system was, but upon the Big West Conference and whatnot, and someone I know that works for the Big West Conference, she told me that the sound system was too loud, and it eventually just was not. It was too loud to the point where Alan said something, and then the refs were even correct, and they said to turn it down to normal sound system. So, to all you Hawaii fans, please don't start anything on Twitter. Please don't start Twitter battles or Twitter wars or beefs and whatnot, because it's just not cool. So, but I respect Hawaii and its fans. They have passionate fans. They are absolutely amazing. It's just that sometimes they kind of can take little things out of proportion. So there's that. But either way, congratulations once more to Hawaii men's volleyball. And I look forward to seeing if y'all can repeat next year. So that is that for NCAA men's volleyball. We are going to take ourselves a quick little break. When we come back, we're going to recap the NCAA beach volleyball tournament, as I didn't get to recap any of the rounds when I last did Set Point. So I'm looking forward to recapping the whole NCAA beach volleyball tournament. So you're listening to Set Point here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Hey guys, it's Blake Henley, better known as H-Town Blake to some of you. Happy to announce that Bases Loaded is back in full force. We'll be bringing that high heat every Tuesday night here on IE Sports Radio. So come home, get ready, dig into that batter's box, and see if you can chase that high heat, baby. So we'll be coming to you live with all the stats, all the rundowns, all the division rivalries, and every team that's going to make the playoff push to get to that one and only October and get to the pinnacle of what baseball is, to hoist that Commissioner's Trophy when it's all said and done.
What's good, fight fans? It's your boy, Marcus Los Great, here to give you what you want, here to give you what you need. Yeah, man. Yeah. I'm coming to you live, straight from your mama's basement with a crispy, awesome white tea. They're coming to you live every Tuesday at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Powered by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Hey sports fans, do you like wine? Well, we've got the show for you. This is Let's Wine About Sports, a show where we talk about wine and sports simultaneously. From the classic Cabernet Sauvignon all the way down to the grapes that you've never even heard of before. Oh yeah, we cover it all. And we'll talk about a little bit of sports as well. Football, hockey, collegiate, women's sports, it doesn't matter. We're going to talk about it all, and we're going to whine about it all. So join me Monday at 8 p.m. on IU Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
And welcome back to segment number 2 of Set Point. I hope y'all are still having a great rest of the day. And this is the last time I'll be recapping anything NCAA volleyball related for a while. So it's a little sentimental here, but I'm glad to be doing what I'm doing. And before we continue, just gotta give a little note to what's coming up here on IE Sports Radio. At 4 p.m. Pacific Time, 6 p.m. Central Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, we have Chi-Town Weekly with Adam Karnick. He does a great job with his show, and he's got himself a guest on his show. This guest comes from the Chicago Sun-Times, as Adam's guest is Annie Costabile of the Chicago Sun-Times, so definitely do check that out. Those two will be talking about the Chicago Sky and the Fair Play organization, or Equal Play organization, so definitely do check that out. And as you heard on the drops, we have a lot of great shows, such as Mike's show, Let's Whine About Sports, which comes on every Sunday at 6 p.m. Pacific Time, 9 p.m. Eastern. And then we also have Bases Loaded, which comes on every Sunday at 5 p.m. Pacific Time, 8 p.m. Eastern. That's hosted by Brandon Buckingham, Blake Henley, and Chris Garcia, a.k.a. the Sports Brain. And then Tuesday, as you all heard in the promotions, we have Gloves Off with Marcus Los Great, who goes on every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Pacific Time, 11 p.m. Eastern Time. I always catch his show, and he does an outstanding job. It's like basically walking into a combat sports classroom and listening to the professor do his thing. And Marcus does an outstanding job. So definitely tune into that. And without any further delay, let's get on into segment number 2 of Set Point. So now we're going to recap the NCAA Beach Volleyball Tournament. And beach volleyball is a lot different than like the average than indoor volleyball. Not just because it's being played on the beach, but their tournament is kind of weird. There's an elimination bracket, and some people will call it the contenders bracket, but I call it elimination bracket just because it's basically you're fighting for your season. So for the teams and for the people that call it the contenders bracket, no. It is the elimination bracket. So anyway. So the NCAA Beach Volleyball Tournament consisted of 8 teams. To recap all 8 of those teams, the 8th seed was TCU, the 7th seed was Cal Poly, the 6th seed was Stanford, the 5th seed was Florida State, the 5th seed was LMU, the 4th seed was LSU, the 3rd seed was Florida State, the 2 seed was USC, and the 1st seed was UCLA. So, to quickly recap some of these games, UCLA beat TCU 3-0. Florida State beat Stanford 3-0. USC defeated Cal Poly 3-0. And LMU defeated LSU 3-2. Now, I know most of those matches have 5, or most of those duels, because the word duel is what they call a whole match, but a duel has 5 matches going on, and if the team wins 3 matches, then the other matches that are going on just stop what they're doing, and that's that. So when it comes to the NCAA tournament, of course, or any postseason tournament, like the Pac-12 tournament or the Big West tournament or any other postseason conference tournament. So there's that. Anyway, so the reason why UCLA, Florida State, and USC won 3-0 instead of like 5-0 is because once they clinch that 3rd match, then it's over. Then the other matches just become irrelevant, and there's no point because the players don't want to get hurt and whatnot. So there's that. The reason why the LMU-LSU match went 5 sets was because those matches actually mattered. Like it had to be decided because because LSU won 2 matches and LMU won 2 matches. So basically the last match going on had to basically be decided as the tiebreaker, and LMU won that last match, giving them the win 3 matches to 2 and winning them the duel. So UCLA advances to face LMU, while USC advances to face Florida State. Now, as for the elimination bracket, so as the elimination bracket consists of all the teams that lose. Like, my motto is for the NCAA tournament or any conference postseason tournament, you can lose once, but you can't lose twice. So the consolation bracket consisted of TCU versus LSU and Stanford versus Cal Poly. LSU defeated TCU 3-1. They managed to win 3 matches, while TCU only won 1, and then 1 match didn't finish. And then Cal Poly, I wouldn't say the word upset, just because Stanford, even though Stanford was seeded higher, Cal Poly has been in the NCAA beach volleyball tournament longer than Stanford has, so Cal Poly edged Stanford 3-2 as Cal Poly advanced to the second round of the elimination bracket, while Stanford and TCU went home. Same with LSU. LSU managed to advance to the second round of the elimination bracket. So, and then the winner of the opponent of LSU and TCU depended on who lost in the upper division bracket, which has no name. It's just the upper bracket. I just call it the champions bracket. Anyway, so the semifinals of the upper bracket, or the champions bracket, consisted of UCLA versus LMU and Florida State versus USC. So the UCLA-LMU match happened when I was doing the SoCal Supreme Sports Show on Friday, and believe it or not, LMU, the number 5 seed, a team that had been making their first ever NCAA beach volleyball tournament appearance, upset number 1 UCLA 3-2. It all came down to, I think it was the 5th court number 5, which was going to a decisive third set, and LMU was able to pull out the win. I don't know the exact names of the players, but unfortunately for UCLA, they lost in that third set, and they lost the match 3-2 as they fell down to the elimination bracket. They like to call it the contenders bracket, but it's the elimination bracket. So there's that. And then USC defeated Florida State 3-1. They did lose a match, which at the time it wound up mattering, but USC was able to defeat Florida State and advance to the finals of the upper bracket portion of the tournament. So there was that. So as for Florida State, they dropped down to the elimination bracket where they faced LSU, while UCLA dropped down to face Cal Poly. UCLA, no doubt, defeated Cal Poly 3-0. They managed to win 3 matches, and which clinched them the duel, meaning the other 2 matches didn't matter, even if they continued. There was no point of there's no point of continuing the match if the duel is decided and whatnot. So there's that. And then LSU was able to grind it out. Here's what happened. So LSU was up 2-1 in the duel. They won 2 matches, while Florida State won 1 match. And then the remaining 2 matches that were happening both went the distance. They both went to a third set. And then LSU was able to take one of those 2 remaining matches, and then the other one was stopped because it didn't matter what happened and whatnot. So LSU, obviously it says LSU won 3-1, but LSU edged Florida State. They barely got out of that one. It could have gone either way with Florida State and LSU. That's because LSU has the greatest duo ever in Teran Cloth and Kristen Nuss. Noose. I think it's pronounced Nuss. Regardless, it's pronounced, it is what it is. So LSU and UCLA advanced to the elimination bracket semifinals, where those 2 faced each other on Saturday, and UCLA barely got by LSU, winning the duel 3-2. It actually was decided by, I think it was court number 5, where Riley Powers and Jaden Whitmarsh were able to win on that court, as they were the number 5 pair. So Whitmarsh and Powers redeemed themselves after losing to LMU in the semifinals. So UCLA advanced to the elimination bracket finals, where they faced the loser of USC LMU. Speaking of LMU versus USC, LMU and USC faced each other in the upper bracket finals, where USC defeated LMU 3-1, allowing USC to advance to the NCAA championship match, while LMU had to face UCLA in the elimination bracket. So basically, the last three teams were from Southern California, which is really funny. And I think the Stanford coach, or one of the Stanford, I forget what his affiliation was with Stanford, but I think it was like the Stanford coach said that the NCAA tournament should have been played in Santa Monica because each team was like 10 miles from there, because you had USC, UCLA, and LMU, all of which are from the Los Angeles area, which is funny. So no matter what happened, a team from Southern California was going to win the NCAA beach volleyball tournament, which is funny because as the host of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show, it's pretty cool seeing a team from Southern California represent. But then again, SoCal is kind of a hotbed for beach volleyball for the most part. Whether you're from the San Diego area, the Orange County area, or the Los Angeles area. Like volleyball can be a complete hotbed for indoor and beach volleyball. So there's that. Anyway, the final day of the NCAA beach volleyball tournament consisted of LMU and UCLA facing each other in the elimination bracket finals, and UCLA was able to take three matches. The first three matches, here's how the format works. It goes the number 3 pair versus the number 5 pair, and then after those two matches conclude, then the number 1 pair, the number 2 pair, and then the number 4 pair face one another in their duel. So in the end, UCLA won the number 3 and number 5 pair, and I think they won the number 2 pair, or was it the number 1 pair? It was the number 1 pair, as UCLA won the duel 3-0 and advanced to the NCAA championship match where they faced USC, which I kind of said it was going to be between USC and UCLA. Anything less than that is considered kind of like, it's not really a disappointment, but it's kind of not the same if you ask me. So anyway, the match consisted of USC versus UCLA in the national championship match. So just to break this down a little bit slowly, the 3 versus 5 match consisted of, I don't remember the exact names. I'm actually going to pull this up on, here it is. Hold on. Okay, so the number 3, the match on court 3 consisted of Haley Hallgren and Haley Harward against Lindsay Sparks and Abby Van Winkle. And then the match on court number 5 consisted of Riley Powers and Jaden Whitmarsh against Audrey Norris and Nicole Norris. So long story short, the number 3 pair, or the match on court 3, USC won 21-14, 21-17. The Haley girls really performed well. I've seen Haley Harward play, honestly, and she is a baller. She played at Long Beach State, and I got to see at least one of her seasons before she transferred and just focused on beach volleyball, and she was just a stud. She could really serve the you-know-what out of the ball, and she also hustles for the ball really well. She is able to sacrifice her body to keep the ball in play, and she's able to crush it. So Haley Harward just was a stud that match. Now, I'm not trying to discredit Lindsay Sparks and Abby Van Winkle, but I just think the two Haleys weren't having the greatest NCAA beach volleyball tournament, and then they wound up coming up big in that number 3 match. And then the number 5 match, I was very disappointed with the Norse twins losing against Riley Powers and Jaden Whitmarsh. Don't get me wrong, Jaden Whitmarsh and Riley Powers are both talented players. But I will also say this, Audrey Norris and Nicole Norris are both both had like 27 wins. I think they were like 27-3 going into that championship match on the season, and then they lost in straight sets 21-13, 26-24, and the Norris twins actually had their chance of winning that little match, but unfortunately they just laid an egg, which is disappointing because I think the Norris twins are really talented and they're great players, but they just fell apart against Whitmarsh and Powers. But that could be because Jaden Whitmarsh is a very talented beach player. That also could be that Riley Powers has great team chemistry with Whitmarsh. I don't know. But either way, after the 3-match and the 5-match, both teams were tied at 1-1 in the duel. But on court number 1, the number 1 pairs, we had Tina Gradina and Megan Kraft defeating Lexi Denneberg and Savvy Simo 21-16, 21-17. Now, I was kind of surprised to see USC pulling off that win, considering Savvy Simo is one beast of a beach volleyball player. She's a beast of a volleyball player in general. Like, she really wants to go out on top. But you'll see that kind of didn't pan out. But I was very impressed with Megan Kraft. I think Megan Kraft is only a freshman, and she was actually the number 1 recruit out of the class of 2020. So the fact that Megan Kraft had herself an outstanding high school career and she's making a tremendous impact in the NCAA beach volleyball scene is a promising sign for USC. So USC was up 2-1 after winning on court number 1, and then we jump to court number 2 where Julia Scholes and Sammy Slater faced Leah Monkhouse and Devin Newberry. Believe it or not, Scholes and Slater grinded out the first set 26-24. I remember seeing that little matchup, and I do remember that Scholes and Slater were up 6 at one point, and then they fell apart, and then UCLA had a chance to win the first set, and then eventually USC closed the door on them. And then eventually USC, Julia Scholes and Sammy Slater were able to take that second set and the match off of a service ace. I'll also make note of the number 4 matchup, but that was the match that clinched the duel and the championship for USC, as they have won their 3rd NCAA championship in beach volleyball. It's technically their 4th, but one of those wasn't really official. I'm not trying to say it doesn't count, but it's not NCAA sanctioned. That's what I'm trying to get at. So, 2016 and 2017 were both NCAA sanctioned, as well as 2018 and 19 for UCLA. And then 2020, there was no NCAA championship, and then because of COVID. And then this year is basically their 3rd NCAA official. So there's that. Now, as for the number 4 matchup, the number 4 matchup didn't conclude, but Joy Dennis and Delaney Maple, I think that was the match that they were up by 6, and then they wound up falling apart late in the set. And I'm not going to say that Joy Dennis and Delaney Maple didn't do great, but they had a big lead, and then they wound up blowing every set point that they got. And then eventually they wound up falling apart, which that first set was very annoying. It's like, wow, you had all the chances in the world to close the door on Jacqueline Quaid and Megan Murray, and you managed to blow it. But eventually that did not matter, because Joy Dennis and Maple forced a 3rd set. So in case Julia Scholes and Sammy Slater did not win that match on court number 2, it would have been a sudden death matchup between Dennis and Maple versus Murray and Quaid. But regardless, USC was able to win the championship, the NCAA Beach Volleyball Championship, as they wound up winning 3 matches to 1, and they they dethroned UCLA. Like, UCLA was the two-time champion because they won back in 2018 and 19 when there was a tournament, as opposed to last year, which did not have an NCAA tournament because of COVID. But this year, the Trojans are back on top, which is absolutely awesome. And I congratulate USC on winning the NCAA Beach Volleyball Championship. So let's give them a round of applause real quick. So that was absolutely amazing for USC. As a USC fan, I was really impressed with them. I really cannot believe they were able to. I really couldn't believe they were able to grind it out and get the win. Like, that was amazing. I was very impressed, and they have a lot of senior leadership on their team. They have a lot of graduate transfers and seniors, so those players really want to go out with a win. So the thing for USC is that they're going to lose, I believe it's 9 of those seniors / graduate transfers, unless the seniors take the extra year of eligibility. But I will say this, USC's future looks quite bright with players like Maple and Kraft. And then they've also got the Norse twins that return, so I think USC's future still looks very promising. It's just that UCLA is looking also talented as well. And then you also got LMU, which looked good. They do lose quite a bit of players, but I think you could say that for almost every team. But I just think that it was great that USC was able to send their seniors on top. For UCLA, it's tough for me to not defend them just because they had a very young team. Their team was quite young. They lost quite a bit of seniors due to the pandemic and graduation. But I will say this, UCLA has a very bright future with players such as Van Winkle, Whitmarsh, Powers, Sparks, Newberry. The list goes on and on. I think UCLA's future is looking bright, and I think they're going to still be up there when it comes to the way too early rankings. So there's that. And now let's get into my Terry Awards for the NCAA Beach Volleyball season. So, the most outstanding team, without a doubt, is USC. They didn't even lose a match. They didn't even need to go down to the contenders bracket. They only lost 3 matches all year. No, not all year. They only lost 3 matches all tournament. Like, they didn't lose a duel. They only lost 3 matches. One was to Florida State, the other was to LMU, and then the other was to UCLA. So USC is the outstanding team. The most disappointing team, and it's kind of hard for me to pick disappointing team, just because beach volleyball is totally different, like I said. I think the most disappointing team was Florida State. And I kind of wanted to pick Stanford, but Stanford has an excuse because they have been in the NCAA tournament for quite some time. Florida State did not look good. Obviously they tore past an inexperienced Stanford team, but Stanford hadn't been in the NCAA tournament until this year. And then they lost to USC, and then they also lost to LSU, which I don't know what happened to Florida State. They were the number 3 seed, and they wound up losing. Okay, the USC loss was understandable, but they lost to LSU, which I guess could have gone either way. But I just think Florida State, I thought it was going to be closer between USC, but unfortunately the Noles were unable to get past the Trojans, as well as the Tigers. But I guess if I had to pick another one, I would probably say that my most disappointing team it's a toss-up between Stanford, but I gotta say it's more so Florida State, just because Florida State had the edge over LSU for the most part, even though LSU has a lot of talent on their team, and they have the most dominant pair in all of NCAA beach volleyball. Regardless, I gotta have one scapegoat, and that's Florida State as my most disappointing team. Like, they didn't even make it to... Actually, no, they did make it to day 2. They went 1-1 the first day. Like, I would also say TCU, but it's tough to call them disappointing when they were the number 8 seed already, and they too were making their first NCAA tournament appearance. So I'm trying not to pick on the lower seeds, but I think Florida State was quite the disappointing team. I really think it was just very disappointing that they couldn't even make it to the semifinals of the elimination bracket. But it is what it is. Like, they can't help it. Oh well, that's all I gotta say. So now for the most the most surprising team. Now the most surprising team. This one is clearly obvious. I got Pickett, and this one goes to LMU. So LMU was a complete surprise team, and I have every reason to eat a lot of crow about them. Like, because honestly, I thought they weren't going to do as great. I thought that they were going to have to fight through the contenders bracket throughout most of the way. But they managed to knock off UCLA, which was absolutely amazing. I didn't think they were going to have a chance against UCLA, and then they pulled out that absolutely amazing victory over the Bruins. It was their first win over UCLA since 2014. That just goes to show you how long it had been since they last beat a team like UCLA. So I gotta tip my hat to LMU. Like it's just great. It really is great, and I'm just looking for their tournament team. So I will also say this about one thing I will say about LMU is that they have a very impressive fours pair. Their fours pair, I'm trying to look up the name. I know who one of the players is. I'm just trying to find out who the second player is. I'm trying to find the whole all-tournament team, but unfortunately, I can't find it because disappointingness and the NCAA wants me to suffer. But I'm just going to go to the LMU website and whatnot. So and it's not there. So anyway, LMU had a very impressive pair this year, and that pair eventually made the all-tournament team. As I'm having a tough time. Sorry, y'all. Anyway, so the pair that made the NCAA all-tournament team was Darby Dunn and Jacinda Ramirez. Now, I've seen Jacinda Ramirez play. She played indoor, though. I've seen her play indoor, but I know she's had a lot of success when it comes to beach volleyball. And this pair went 10-0 the entire season, which is absolutely impressive. They're not as... I mean, obviously they can't be compared to Kristen Nuss and Taryn Cloth, but Jacinda Ramirez has a bright future ahead of her. Unfortunately for Darby Dunn, she is a graduate student, but she does deserve a lot of credit for adapting to playing with a freshman. But I will say this about Jacinda. Like I said, she is a highly touted freshman. She's had a lot of success when it comes to beach volleyball. It's hard for me to say that she wasn't impressive this year. Like, she was the biggest bright spot for LMU this year, and I think Jacinda Ramirez is going to be something special going forward. Like, I kind of want to have her on set, bring her on as a guest on Set Point. We'll see. But LMU really surprised me this tournament. I had a feeling they were going to be the dark horse of the tournament, but for them to upend UCLA, which was the number 1 seed, it was absolutely amazing. Like, I know LMU has one of the more experienced rosters, but LMU really showed that they belonged in the second round just because they won the West Coast Conference Championship for the first time in its team's history, because every other year it was just Pepperdine, 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 Pepperdine. And then this year it was LMU, which eventually beat LSU in the first round, and then they also beat UCLA in the semifinals of the upper bracket. And then unfortunately their magic fell a little bit short as they wound up losing to USC, and then they just ran into a buzzsaw against UCLA. But I gotta really tip my hat to LMU. That team really has a bright future, and I think this team is going to be something really special going forward. Like, if they continue to have great recruiting classes, or they get like good players via transfer, or if their players don't leave, then I can see this team being something very special in the near future. Like, we always talk about USC and UCLA being number 1 and number 2, but LMU could be a solid number 3 because they're from Southern California too, and they could basically get players from Southern California or sign players through Southern California in terms of letter of intent. What I'm trying to say is that with LMU being a Southern California school, they'll be able to get the hotbed of players on the high school beach volleyball scene. So it's going to be something really special for LMU going forward. And they got a great foundation going too. And the fact that their pair of Jacinda Ramirez and Darby Dunn made the NCAA tournament team is absolutely amazing. So there's that right there. And I think LMU has a bright future ahead of them. Like, they do lose quite a bit of graduates that made the West Coast Conference team, and they also lose they lose their player of the year. But again, you can definitely say that their future looks more so bright, and I think they're going to be great going forward. So USC and UCLA better watch out, because LMU is rising, or should I say on the horizon. So there's that. Now, my next award, or my next Terry Award for the NCAA Beach Volleyball Tournament, is which team will win the team most likely to win. So this one's very difficult. Like, I can't really pick an actual contender, considering beach volleyball is so unusual, and a lot of players can come and go, and like, especially when it comes to like the indoor game, or the indoor scene where players transfer, like take for example Megan Rice of LMU. She actually played at UC Santa Barbara, and then she just eventually got tired of it, and then injuries kept piling up for her, and then she transferred to LMU for beach volleyball, and that's how she got to be where she's at now. So the team most likely to win next year, it's very difficult to predict this, and I'll probably just give it to a tie between USC and UCLA. I don't know. Like, it all depends on next year. Like, you also have, like, I don't know how LSU will do next year, but you also have Florida State, which is up there as well. Like I said, LMU has a great foundation. Maybe Stanford next year, considering Stanford made the NCAA tournament, but I just think it's most likely USC or UCLA. And again, it helps that they are Southern California teams, and that they feed off of the hotbed of Orange County or Los Angeles beach volleyball players, or just Orange County, San Diego, and Los Angeles volleyball players in high school. So it helps that they get those types of players, and they are a hotbed because I think it's safe to say California is a hotbed for up and coming beach volleyball players. Because you look at all the pro volleyball players, such as Sarah Hughes and Kelly Clays, Sarah Sponsel, April Ross. Well, Carrie Walsh-Jennings grew up in NorCal, but you kind of get what I mean. Alex Kleinman, Tracy Callahan, the list, Chrissy Jones. The list goes on and on when it comes to like players, beach volleyball players on the pro scene. Like these NCAA beach volleyball players are going to be those players in the near future. So it all depends. Regardless, I still think USC and UCLA are the teams most likely to win. And if not, then I'll eat a lot of crow and I'll get dunked on by the teams that actually did win. Like, if it's LSU, then I'll get dunked on by LSU fans. If it's Florida State, I'll get dunked on by Florida State fans. And heaven forbid, if it's LMU, I will get supremely dunked on by LMU fans. But to close the book on the NCAA beach volleyball season, it was a fantastic year, and it did not disappoint. Like I said, the beach volleyball season was wide open this year, and it showed. Like, UCLA was not invincible. USC was not invincible. LMU came up on the horizon. It was absolutely amazing. And then LSU eventually kind of wilted toward the end. Florida State stumbled after losing to USC, and it just went to show you that any team could have won the NCAA Beach Volleyball Championship. And if they have another 8-team bracket, then so be it. But I'm almost certain they're going to expand the bracket. I think this whole 8-team bracket thing was just for this year because of COVID and whatnot. So there's that right there. And until next year, Gulf Shores. And I'm going to try to get more into NCAA beach volleyball. Again, it didn't help that NCAA men's volleyball has to basically share the spotlight. And then it also didn't help that NCAA women's volleyball indoors had to share the spotlight as well. So it was difficult. But hey, what can we do? It's a pandemic year. And also, I will say this. No one should be saying that this is a Mickey Mouse title or there's an asterisk by it. As a matter of fact, this was probably the toughest championship to win this year just because there were a lot of good teams this year. And I think when it comes to beach season, I hope we get more wide open seasons. I hope it's not just like one or two teams dominating everyone else. Like, I like to see variety. I like to see teams like LMU coming from the rising and just stepping up their play, or Stanford getting into the tournament, or TCU and whatnot. I don't know, food for thought, just in my opinion. So, anyway, that's going to be that for the NCAA beach volleyball talk, and that's going to be that for everything NCAA related as well. So, the 2020 NCAA volleyball season is over. No beach volleyball, no women's volleyball indoor, and no men's volleyball. So, the question that I ask is, what's going to be next for Set Point? So, Set Point is going to continue to go on. Like, it's just going to be like a digestion of which teams are going to lose which seniors, like which champions are going to be losing which players, and then also I got to talk some NCAA women's volleyball transfer news. So, there's a lot of NCAA transfer news going on. Like, I'm not going to spoil it till next week. And then, heck, I don't even know what's going to happen. I don't even know what the topic is going to be for next week. Like next week, I know California high school volleyball playoffs start. So the brackets will most likely be released this weekend. And then there's the 3C2A, the California Community College Athletic Association. That's still going on for this week and then the final 2 weeks. So there's that as well. Like, there's still plenty of volleyball to talk about. And then when it comes to summertime, I think the NVA, the National Volleyball Association, will still be going on, which is also another thing I can talk about. And then also the AVP will be starting up again. I think more fans will be allowed to attend. And then also, we're going to get more AVP events instead of just 3. So, there's that right there. Like, set point's not going anywhere. It's not going anywhere. So, we'll probably just get through transfer news and then the NVA. We'll probably just get through NVA, NCAA women's volleyball transfer news, 3C2A volleyball, high school volleyball in California, just because I'm pretty sure we're going to get a national champion from there, just because the last few champions have been from Southern California. Yeah, last 2 champions were from Southern California. Like, 2019 it was Newport Harbor, and then 2018 was Corona Del Mar. All I know is that 2017 was Punahou, who is from Hawaii, so there's that. But there's plenty of volleyball to talk about. Like, set point isn't going off the air anytime soon. And then summertime, obviously there's going to be AVP happening. And then after that, I'll probably try to get more guests at the volleyball banquet. When it came to honoring the 2 retirees from teaching, I got to talk to some people, and I told them about set point, and I told them that, hey, I'd like to have you on as a guest. And I could probably see more guests coming on here sooner rather than later. So there's that. But I think that's going to do it for today. But all I can tell you is that set point's not going anywhere. We are keeping this train rolling, baby. One last thing, actually, before I sign off. This week is the 7-year anniversary of IE Sports Radio. And Saturday is the Defining Moments 7-year anniversary special. I don't know if it's going to be able to top last year's 6-year anniversary, but I will also say this. It's been an honor to be a part of the IE Sports Radio family for going on 2 years now. And honestly, I'm really looking forward to the 7-year anniversary show, considering I'm going to have the rest of the afternoon to myself. And I'm also going to get inducted into the IE Sports Radio Hall of Fame. But that's not really too relevant. The point is that I've enjoyed my time here at IE Sports Radio, and I look forward to keep having more episodes of Set Point. I have saved most of all the Set Point episodes onto a flash drive, but I'm happy to have kept the show going for 89 episodes. Like, next week is episode 90. Like, I don't even know what I'm going to be doing for episode 90, but it's not going to be something special. Like, the fact that I'm almost near 100 episodes is absolutely amazing. I definitely got to thank Larry B for bringing me on here and helping me, like, get Set Point going, considering when I first did Set Point, obviously I didn't know what I was doing. It just felt weird not having anyone else as a partner, and it kind of felt weird at first not having people in the chat room and whatnot, and not knowing being one of these weird new shows, or being one of these shows that basically is like a sport that no one really talks a whole lot about in terms of professional and let alone college-wise, but I'm glad I'm still doing Set Point and SoCal Supreme Sports Show, and I feel I've grown quite a bit when it comes to doing Set Point. And it also helps that I'm able to have an NCAA men's volleyball season and an NCAA beach volleyball season at a full capacity. Well, not like a full capacity, but a full season, if you know what I mean. Like remember, last year there was no NCAA men's volleyball tournament or beach volleyball tournament, so I couldn't recap that, and it was a bummer. But I'm glad to have completed the full season of men's volleyball and beach volleyball and the new NCAA women's volleyball season, and hopefully everything will be back to the new norm next year. So there's that, and I gotta say this again, Set Point ain't going anywhere. We're keeping this train going, especially with me being out of school. Like, this is my last week of at Long Beach State, and hopefully I'll be graduating, but I'm most likely going to be graduating And then it's going to be some fun times and whatnot. So definitely be on the lookout for more episodes of Set Point. And definitely be looking out for some guests going forward. So with that being said, that is going to do it for this week's episode of Set Point. I appreciate being on here for the past 1 hour and 40 minutes. I appreciate y'all still tuning in. If you're tuning in, thank you to the chat room, being Ben Suttereth and Courtney Harden, for popping in and saying what's up. I really appreciate you too. Definitely do check out BS3 Radio and check out all of our other shows on IE Sports Radio, just because it is the 7th year anniversary and we got a lot of shows going on this week. So definitely do check that out. Theoretically, I was kind of the first show to talk about the 7-year anniversary of IE Sports Radio. Not that I'm trying to toot my own horn here, but this week is the 7-year anniversary of Set Point, and it's a huge deal. So definitely do check out the remainder of our shows, and definitely check out everything that is IE Sports Radio. And go to the gift shop on iesportsradio.com and buy yourself about 30 t-shirts. 15 black, 15 white, and heck, get some sweaters while you're at it too, even though it's not cold. Get some tank tops. Heck, get some IE Sports Radio merchandise, because you'd look really good in it. Regardless, that's going to do it for this episode of Set Point. Without any further delay, it is time to drop the beat, as I'm about to dip like a banana in chocolate. You feel me? Thank you all once again for tuning in to Set Point. I greatly appreciate it. If you are listening live, I really do appreciate it. If you are listening on the replay, I also do appreciate it as well. Next week, we will be back most likely on Tuesday, if not Monday. I haven't really decided what's going to be the next day I do Set Point for next week. Regardless, I will be back. And I'll be back loaded, school-free, and pretty much close to graduation. Anyway, for everyone here at IE Sports Radio, and for our two sponsors, Legacy Financial and the Southern California Warriors, this is Teran Rodriguez signing off. Have yourselves a great rest of the day. Enjoy the rest of the week. If you're still watching some volleyball, keep on enjoying that. And in about 1 hour and 16 minutes, Adam Karnick will be going live with Chi-Town Weekly. But this is Teran Rodriguez signing off. Enjoy the rest of your week. And remember, I'll be back on Friday for the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. Peace.